I want to introduce you to Luisette Kraal, who has very kindly agreed to talk to us today. So I'm just going to give you a quick introduction. Stubborn faith is a position, an attitude of dogged determination to choose faith and to trust in God to live through hardships and come out a strong believer. And Luisette has lived through hardship long enough to know about that. But with a resilience, a godly resilience, almost to stubbornness, she holds fast to Jesus. She got 2 masters and she's a prolific writer. She loves to speak with other people on loving God. And Luisette is going to share her story with us and tell us about her stubborn faith. And Luisette, it's English is not her first language. She speaks, is it Belgian?
Dutch,
sorry for not remembering. I was nearly there, only a few miles.
Yeah, a few miles up. Actually, I lived in Belgium a long time.
Oh, it's beautiful, Belgium. Yeah, yes. I love Bruges.
I love Bruges.
Yeah, we should definitely have a girls' trip to Bruges, shouldn't we? So over to you, Luisette.
Excuse me?
Over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm Luisette. I'm 56, live in Chicago in the Midwest of the United States, born and raised on the island Curacao in the Caribbean, in the South Caribbean. If you know the Caribbean, and there are tons of islands in the Caribbean, and we speak basically 4 languages in the Caribbean, over all islands, which is English, Dutch, Spanish, and then Haiti speaks French, and they have a Creole. My country speaks Dutch, and we have a Dutch Creole. So those are kind of the languages we speak in the Caribbean. And I was fortunate enough to be born on the island of Curacao, which is Dutch colony, and our Dutch school system taught us 3 of the 4 languages in school. So I am very good with English, Dutch, and Spanish, and Papiamento, of course, which made me bilingual. I don't even know how to say that in English. Not a bilingual, not a trilingual, but the other one person. That's a great position to be in. However, it also means that you don't speak anyone good, because some things you say better in this language, and then you kind of mix them because everybody you know speaks all 4 because it's in the school system. So you mix and match. But then when you speak with only English, or only, you have to think like, oh yeah, okay, these people want it like 100%. So help me with words here. So just in case you don't kind of know where the Caribbean completely is, which is totally understandable, these are the islands from the Caribbean. This is Miami, and those are the islands from the Caribbean. This is Central America, South America, Colombia, Venezuela, and my island is right there in the middle, the little one in front of Venezuela. So we are completely in South Caribbean. And that's also the region that we serve as missionaries, because we speak 3 out of 4 languages. We figure that with our age and everything, why would we make our life way more complicated? Use whatever God gave us already and use it quickly, because you don't know when is the time to say goodbye to this life and say hi to Jesus. So we will use the time good by using, and we use it. And at this moment, our ministry is in Santo Domingo, which is the half of an island that Haiti is on. Yeah, you know, very plagued island, lots of problems. And we serve some more islands. We serve Cuba a lot. We have an after-school program here in Santo Domingo. I'm from this island, Curacao, and this is our main street. And if there is one thing I didn't know about my island, is that we love colors. I thought everybody loved colors and had colorful buildings. Think again. But I love colors, and all our buildings are colorful. people are colorful. Everything is about colors, mix and match, and this is just Main Street. So influence of a lot of Jews coming on the island. This is me when I was 4 years old. Do you see me here? Now, let's be honest. Wasn't I cute?
Yes.
This is around 4 years old, and it's also the time that my story starts with my sadness. I've been depressed my whole life from 4 years old on. I was a 6-year-old child living on the Caribbean that tried to suicide herself without knowing what suicide is, or without even know what death is. Never heard about death, or never had anybody die on me, not even a cat or anything. But I figured by 6 years, I better be not in this life. And you don't see on this picture, but my family would always put ribbons in our hair. We would have two hair and two big ribbons. So I took one of the ribbons, went outside, put it around my neck, and pull it, trying to kill myself with 6 years old. Not ever have thought or heard anything about killing myself. There was me at 8 years old. In my country, it's very Catholic, so this is what we will call the first communion. And I look back at the pictures, and we were all sad. We were a sad, sad family. And our sadness didn't come from poor, because we didn't know we were poor. We were the kind of poor people that didn't know they were poor. You know what? You know those kind. You're good. You have everything you need. You have playtime. You have fun. You have whatever you need. You don't even realize that in a big scale of things, you would be called a poor person. Well, like that's what they called, I guess, a happy poor person, because they don't know that they are poor. And it was not that kind of poorness that we only have one meal a week or something. So we were good poor. And but we were all sad. And the story start when I was around 4 years old, that my uncle was persistent to engage in sexual games with me in such a way that I lived very scared. I was always scared, and he was always touching me, pulling my panties, putting his fingers where he shouldn't do. He was always talking me in the bathrooms. I couldn't take showers. I couldn't go to the pool or the beach. We had a lot of beaches on the island. Couldn't put on swimming suits. It was always my fault. I was always provoking him when I was 4, 5, 6 years old. I was always told never, ever, ever to tell anybody, because he would do it with my sisters. Fast forward, 40 years later, I figured out that he did it with my sisters too. Anyway, even though I didn't say anything then. And I was very, very, very depressed. And I figured out my mom that knew we were poor, because my father is an alcoholic. And was anything you see here in this house, in the back here, I remember all those things. And I also remember all those things broken. He would come drunk and break everything. He wouldn't hit us or my mom, although they fight, but he wouldn't hit her. Like, she would fight right back. They were power to each other. It wasn't that she was submissive and he hit her, but it was huge fights. So on one side, huge fights, not always having the food that we wanted or needed, not always having clean clothes or be able to go to school because the shoes were broken. And then being accosted by an uncle made really easy to make me depressed. And I grew up being a depressed teenager. Before this was a thing, like now in Europe, it's like a thing. And in America too, everybody's depressed, goes to the doctor. I mean, 50 years ago, it wasn't a thing, but I was it without knowing that I was it. And then when I was in my 15, 16, my mom realized that we had to study. And although she was not a good mom, absolutely not, but she loved us enough to realize that she had to give us an education so we would move out of the world that we were living in. So she had 4 girls. And in that time, girls don't study. And she said, I don't care. My girls are going to study so they can get out of this life that I have to live, which was very fast forward for her 50 years ago. It's unbelievable that I had a mom that thought like that in the Caribbean. This is my grandma died in 2008 and she was 100 years old. That means that she was almost 100 and she was 90. That means that she was either a child or something when slavery was abolished in the Caribbean. That means that my grandma was a Black person in the slavery time or right after the slavery time, being a child of slaves or free Blacks. Nobody knows the family history, but that's a far way to come for my mom to think that she could change the world by making her kids study. And I, of all the things that we had to live through, that is the one thing that she did very well. And she encouraged us on her way to study, which was she would bring us to porch sales, garage sales. Do you call it like that in England? Garage sales, like people put out stuff outside and you drive by and you stop and you pick things up for $1 and things like that. She would drive us to the white Dutch neighborhoods where mostly the marine people would be living. And when they go back to Europe, they would sell the stuff cheap. Every Saturday, she would wake us up and drive to those neighborhoods and she would buy the books. But she herself didn't have a lot of education, so she had no clue what she was buying. She would just buy a box of books. And she would come home, put a box in the middle, and say, everybody reads 2 books this week. And it was either read it or be spanked. I mean, not spanked like we would spank a child nowadays. She would throw whatever is pot of soup, whatever. She was definitely not a good mom in that sense, but she realized that education. So she made us read the books and tell her what was in the books. It was completely inappropriate material that we were reading. I mean, we were reading like Second World War stories when we were 8 and 9 and 10 years old. We were reading um, things that has sexual IDs behind them that were completely inappropriate for 10 years old to read. But she thought the Dutch people read it should be good. You read it too. So, and that's how she figured it. And we did read continuously because after the first book, all the 4 sisters realized that the only way to escape the horrible life we were living was by books. And we've been to England so many times, guys. We have been to Africa. We went over all the continents. We have been Eskimos. We have been whatever we wanted because we had books, tons of books. We had thousands of books. There was no way to walk, but we had books, our best friends. And that's how we grew up, having words and books and always reading and trying to survive. But as soon as I turned 17, I did very, very well in school just because I was always reading. And I got a scholarship to go to Europe to do my bachelor's there. And I was so happy to leave home. I was still very suicidal, but by God's grace, I never did drugs or alcohol to suit it. I had my books to suit it. So my books were my friends. However, um, I went to New Age to find answers. I went to transcendental meditation and all those things to find answers. And they did give me some answers, but they didn't fill the hole, the burning hole, and it didn't take away my suicidal longing. I was very longing for that always. But I did go forward and did get a bachelor's degree in the Netherlands, became a nurse. Then I got a master's degree in the Netherlands, lived in Belgium, and went back to my country, started serving, and met Jesus. And then when I met Jesus, it wasn't right away, but it was more a teaching situation that I learned to trust God. And I was being pestered with suicidal thoughts. Suicide was the only answer for me. I had so many suicidal, that was before Google. I looked suicidal in history, how people did it. I was waiting for my grandma to die because I didn't want to hurt her. She raised me pretty much. And finally, when she died, I was already a Christian. So couldn't do it then because they told me that there was hope in Christ. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this one more try. I tried every other thing. One lady told me, you tried everything. Why wouldn't you try Jesus? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, you're so stuck up. You read so much. You think you're smart, and you just because you got a master's and you're 25 and you think you know it all, you're very stuck up. Why don't you read the Bible for once? You never did that. You only read books. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of true. I never read the Bible, but I just claimed it without even reading it. So, well, that's not very smart and academic. I was proud to be an academic, I said, a researcher. So I thought, how is that possible? I just claim it without reading it. That's true, not good. So I decided then. And I met Jesus so beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. And then I learned to have faith. I learned to have faith. And as I grew and walked in my faith slowly the first years, I started becoming more, I'm going to hold on to faith. And I'm going to trust God that He will take away my suicidal thoughts. Then, fast forward 29-ish somewhere, I met this gorgeous guy. We hit it off. We were best mates and everything. And he was sick. And he was sick, but he was under control. Was nothing big. I thought we can handle this. And I already had a master's in nursing. I knew nursing, and I know we can help. We can be here. And then he, fast forward, go on and die. Become sick 2 months after we married. Became so sick that he was in a wheelchair for 3 years. I cared for him. We lived in hospitals so many months at a time, sometimes 3 months at a time, all over in Europe and also here on the islands and also in America. And it was a rough ride, but by then I had my faith, which was not completely developed, but I decided to be stubborn. One day I woke up and I say, I remember when I wanted this or that, I would just go for it. I would just don't mind it and go for it. And I would be very stubborn. If I woke up with the idea that I had to have a new computer, I would go for it. And actually, some of you are from South Africa. I woke up one day and I said, I need to meet Nelson Mandela. He is my hero for years. And yes, I do have a picture that I did met Mr. Nelson Mandela in 1990 in South Africa, in Johannesburg, in Soweto, with a white friend. And we both came out of Soweto alive. That was stubborn. And I am like, if I can have that faith that I will meet in my eyes, the most important man in the whole world, what's the chances that a little 20-ager, can fly, make enough money to buy tickets to fly to South Africa a couple of months after Mr. Nelson Mandela comes out of prison, and then make it happen. I stayed 3 months to find a way. It wasn't easy. I stayed 3 months in South Africa. That's how I came in Soweto too, and Johannesburg, and I was in Lesotho, and I was in you name it. I was all Botswana, I went all the places, finding a way to meet Mr. Nelson Mandela because he is my hero. I grew up hearing about him. I was the only person in the whole world, in my whole world in the Caribbean, that cared about Mr. Nelson Mandela. Everybody else cared about John, the Bee Gees and Elton John, and everybody else cared about those people. I was the only person I knew that cared about Nelson Mandela. Even my mom would come in my room and say, "Why do you have that sign up?" I wrote a sign. That was before the time that we have posters. You had to make your own posters. I wrote a sign with one of his words, and I wrote a sign of Martin Luther King. I had a sign of the original Luther in my room. I had weird signs because of all the books I was reading that I learned other things. So I met Mr. Nelson Mandela because I was willing to sacrifice 3 months and search for him and look for him and make friends with Soweto people, learn some Soweto, so I could get into Soweto, hide my white friend under black clothes so she could look like she is black, and get into Soweto and meet him. That is what happened. And with that stubborn faith, I thought I should apply this to my Christian life, because I was already a baby stepping, and that's what I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to go all in. I'm going to throw myself in. I'm going to trust God against all odds, against everything that is normal. And then 3 years later, my husband died. And I had to come up with a sign, the idea. And I made this sign for myself. We need a small amount of faith. Think mustard seed. That's how small amount of, in a big God to face what we have to do. And I had to bury my husband. And we were 30 something. And I had to bury my husband. And I didn't have kids. I only had, my husband and I, we would take care of kids with AIDS. This was this was half of the 90s. So in that time, people with AIDS will die. We had 6 kids with AIDS, and 5 of them died. And 1 lives in Manchester with you guys. And he survived. You need a small amount of faith. Think mustard seed. That is how much faith God wants for us. Because we don't need a big faith. Because God is already big. Small amount of faith in a big God. Mustard seed faith in a big God. It's opposite. It's, you will think, I need a lot of faith in God. No, it's the opposite. Isn't it crazy? You need a small amount of faith. Think mustard seed. And I read an article some time ago about if mustard seed is indeed the smallest seed in the world or not. And there was one claim that there might be a seed that is even smaller than a mustard seed. So that proved that the Bible is wrong, because there is most probably a seed out there that is even smaller than this mustard seed. And then other scientists says, but that seed is not a real seed. This is has all the components to be called a seed. That one didn't, and blah, blah, blah. And I say, you guys missing the point. It is not about how many millimeters the seed is. It's about small versus big. And I think I woke up one day and God showed me it's about small versus big. You need a small amount of faith. And I apply that. And because depression has been my friend my whole life, my husband died, and I went back into a depression. And I decided to be in bed, to cry, not to get up, not to work, not to shower, not to eat. And honestly, at that moment, I didn't have a choice. That was how I was. And then again, one day, I woke up crying, and then I realized I do have a choice. I can put my mustard seed faith into this big God. So, you know what? I will do one thing that I can do. I can get out of bed. I can't shower, I can't change my clothes, but I can do one thing. I can get out of bed at least. So I did that. Man, it took me 15 minutes, but I got it. I got out of bed, I walked 3 steps, and I sat on my chair. And that was the change I needed. I just needed one mustard seed of faith in God, and He did the rest. A week later, I was back to being able to drive and walk in my yard, clean my home, and clean my husband's room out, clothes out. And then I fell in a deep, deep sadness, but no depression. And that's the difference between being sad that your husband died and being depressed to the point that you are dying too. And I didn't know that, but I learned the hard way that moment. Now, the same year, follow up, 3 of my other kids died, the kids with AIDS. And I had to bury them all. And I said, that's it. I'm done with dying people. I'm going to take care of living people. So I took in 2 boys that were neglected, foster care, but were not sick to die. So they are now all adults, and I love them to death. They are my babies, although they are taller than me and stronger than me. I still can't tell them, I'm your mother. You listen to me, you young boy. Come sit down here. I have to talk to you. You can't stand because I have to look up. You have to sit so I can talk to you. And it works. I love them to death. They live in Europe, and those are my babies. Now that's when I decided that's when things moved, and I met this guy, Mr. Kraal, and he wanted to marry me. And I said, you know what? I had an awesome, awesome, awesome husband the first time around. My husband was a very, very nice guy. That what is the chance in the world that everybody is divorcing that I will get 2 good husbands? So nah, that's not happening. You're gonna give me a horrible life. I better stay by myself. And I had a good life. I have a very good job. I have a nice home. I got money from my husband's estate. I'm good. I don't need drama. So I said no for a long, long time. But then he said one day to me, this new man, he said, "You you say you're a Christian, you don't even ask God. Because if you had asked God if you should marry me, He would have told you because He told me." And I said, "Well, He didn't tell me." He said, "Yeah, because you didn't ask." I said, "Yeah, that's also true. Let me ask." So I went and asked God. And I totally and 120% trusted God that it was a no. That's how I knew it was a no. He had proposed to me around 14 times, and I said 14 times no, because I knew so sure that it wasn't God's. And then I asked God, and that night I woke up at 3 o'clock and I was reading my Bible, and it was in the book of Genesis where Rebecca was where they were looking for a wife, and then they asked Rebecca, "Do you want to marry this guy?" And then the next sentence says, "And she said yes." This is the King James from 30 years ago, okay? So I don't know how it says in modern Bibles, but it says, and she said yes. I read it and it didn't stuck to me. I just kept reading. And then I was, oh, I don't know what I'm reading. Let me read again. I read again. And then, like when you read the Bible and your brains go away, you don't know what you read, so you come back. So I did it a third time and it stood out to me. I'm like, oh my goodness, God was speaking 3 times to me, like to Peter, like 3 times I'm speaking to you. Peter, do you love me? Peter, do you love me? Peter, I'm like, oh, I'm so dense. So that was Saturday, and Sunday, my to-be husband came and visited me, for the 15th time, he sat down with his best friend. He always bring his best friend. This was courtesy in 20 years ago. And he sat down and he said, would you like to marry me? And I said, okay, yes. I said, yes, I really believe God is in this and God. I said, okay, yes. He said, you don't understand. God really spoke. I said, yes. What don't you understand? He said, oh, it's yes. I didn't know it's yes. So he jumped off. And yeah, 6 months later, and we're going to be 25 years married. And 26, I lost count. And he has been very, very good to me and helped me to my path of life, because depression kept trying to lurk and try to come back. But with a stubborn faith in Christ, a stubborn faith, I stood my ground. And then I decided, what can I do with the little time I have left over? What can I do? My husband says he wants to be a missionary, and I had to follow him. Kind of, I was happy to follow him, but I was thinking, what can I do now to use my time good? Because then he moves here, then he moves there. I cannot do community. I have to follow him. And what can I do that is for a long time? What are my abilities? What did God give me? How can I use it? And you know what turned out? All those books from the past. So, I can string words together and make stories. So I went with my husband to school. We did another bachelor's and another master's in theology this time. That made me a theologian. And I have more than 100 books published. That's God. That's God. So wherever my husband is, whatever he does, I have my own ministry that I can serve God with. I'm very, very happy when I with the words in them. I write children book and I write women devotional books at this point. Now, Amazon, you guys are not in US, so you're good. But Amazon is our biggest selling point on Amazon in America for books, and they don't like me. So this year they started fighting me. They say I have hate speech in my books, which is absolutely not true. Anybody that knows me, I don't live hate. I don't do hate. Even people I don't disagree with, I will never publicly ever speak against anything that I don't disagree with. That's not an issue for social media or books. That's an issue for discipleship and Bible training. So Amazon has canceled 88 of my books in June of 2021. So even though you go to my website today, luisettekraal.com, you will see my books, but you won't be able to buy them because Amazon canceled me. So I'm in the process of republishing. I publish now in Ingram's Park in London, and that has been good. And I have I'm bouncing back. I have like 20 books published now, but it's a lot of expense. I will not be able to republish all 100 and something books. However, again, stubborn faith, God can and will help me. How? So I decided, God, how can I use my words, that's the ability you gave me, in such a way that I redeem the time and the things I lost? I will not do a lawsuit. What can I do? And I decided to pray about it. And a week later, Wycliffe called me to help translate the Dutch Bible in Europe. That's use of words, right or not? And the Bible are words that will live forever and ever and ever.
Wow.
And they will change many people's lives. So I said, yes, start next week. Then I decided to choose from all the books I have 2 categories, and I chose what's on my heart, women and children. So I have 4 delicious, beautiful children's books, hardcover, published. I think, Jane, I sent you a picture of them. They are the parables of Jesus, but told in children's story way, very close to the Bible, so parents can teach the children Bible when they read stories to them, and not only Dr. Seuss or things like that, or 1, 2, 3, or the colors. They will learn that in school. The water will take care of them, but nobody will teach them Bible. So I wrote the best Bible books I could for 4 of them. And I wrote 3 devotional for moms, for mothers. So I'm using my words again, despite being canceled, for 88 books. I did cry 3 weeks. I have to be honest. I did cry 3 weeks, but depression was right there, trying to get me. And I said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And that's, I hope, is the end of my talk, because if you leave me, I can talk the whole day. Don't let me.
Luisette, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you. I'm just
Oh.
asking everybody to unmute themselves. Thank you so much. That was such a lovely talk. And I was like, really, I was like, oh, she did marry him. I know she did. She did. Yes, she's going to say yes. Oh,
I
funny.
did.
So I've just got a couple of things. So I'm going to ask you ladies just to say what you thought of that. Jana, please.
Yeah, where do I even start? That was incredibly encouraging, Luisette. And so inspired by your story and by your stubborn faith, and that you just have this never give up attitude is such a wonderful lesson for us to take home. So well done.
Thank you, Jana. Annie.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I love Curacao. I went there every year, and sometimes twice a year, as my place to escape. And it's a very healing place for me. The Lord really brought me there to heal. I think it's so beautiful. That's your home, your hometown is Curacao. And I really just met the most amazing people, and have, it's interesting. I'm in Romania as a missionary, but I've been to some churches where the service was in Papamientu, and it was interesting. Yes. A lot of the words are very similar. So I could understand quite a bit, which was really beautiful. I'm just bless you and your ministry. I'm curious if being speaking so many languages, and then being with Wycliffe, however it's called. Is there a Bible in Papamientu, or is there? Oh, that's so beautiful.
In 1995, we got our first full Bible in modern Papamientu.
Wow, beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that. So I just bless you in your ministry, and I just speak Holy Spirit's deliverance over you from depression. We just all on this call, we just come into agreement and we cancel it in Jesus' name. I just see such warfare over the way you empower people. So I'm not surprised, but the enemy's really been doing all he can to steal your voice, steal your words. But you're a very powerful speaker, and your story's powerful and relatable to a lot of people. So, thanks for sharing with us tonight.
Thank you. It's the first time I share my story.
Really? Oh my gosh, you're a pro. You got it, girl.
Yes, that's
it's the first time. I was never asked to do that.
Get out.
It's great. And have we got any questions? No, but I want to ask a question. So I can hear in the background, Luisette, some children. So whose children are they?
Yeah, there is a ministry here that has tried to stay open. It is in our home, in our building. So the school has closed completely in Chicago. And there are kids that just don't do well with Zoom. They are addicted to pornography, kids that are vulnerable, parents that has no way to keep them safe on Zoom. So there is a couple of ladies that homeschool, and then they come together on Wednesdays and the kids play together. So that's what you hear. So that started like that, but now it's like an everyday meeting. So it became like a little COVID school. It's not official, so the government might not be completely happy with it, but it is a Christian's help. So parents can help, because it wasn't very difficult when you have compromised kids or when you have autistic kids. You cannot leave the home. It's very bad for the kids. So this family, there's 10 families, we do live with each other. So we don't use masks or anything around each other. That's how we were able to lift the kids through to COVID. Yes.
Wow.
It
Sounds
started
like,
with a 9-year-old that got hooked on pornography because she was trying to type peanuts. And she didn't. And then she was hooked, and she watched way too much of it and was very sick. And because of COVID, there was no help. So when people start talking about it, more kids start confessing that they did it too. And then, so that was what parents then needed. Yeah.
well,
Amazing.
it sounds like you're doing great work there, and they sound like they're having the best time ever. I just loved it. They were screaming at one point, and I was just like, they're just having such fun.
Yes. We put swings and things in the yard. So they push each other, they run, and it's only for half an hour they have the time. So they make all of it.
Oh, yeah. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah.
And just one more, Juanita, do you want to just say something about what you felt about Luisette's talk?
Well, I had a little bit of a chat before as well, which I was privileged to do. And I just think it's when you look from this perspective backwards, didn't God just have his hand on you all the way through life? We have to believe that he knows every hair on our head and he counts it. And it just like your whole story, it just smacks of, if you look back, God really wanted you to come to him, and it's amazing. It is amazing what you're doing, and I can't believe you haven't spoken before. You're going to have to get on a platform now.
Definitely, yeah. Maybe that's the next thing.
Yeah.
I just loved that bit where you know, Amazon said, no, we're not having all this, which is just so the devil, isn't it? And then God was like, yeah, but I've got a much better plan than that. And he's like, great, isn't he? So yeah, thank you so much for your time and for coming to talk to us. It was so inspirational. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you didn't see it all, then it'll be available tomorrow. Are you okay with that, Luisette? Putting it onto our site. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll send you a link.
I will watch it because my first time speaking, so I will watch it myself and then learn from it.
Yeah.